Welcome. This is great intro. This is going to be part one of a teach of John Company Second Edition on Tabletop Simulator, which, which if anyone listened to our podcast knows that this was like tied for my top game of 2022, along with everything else that Cole made in his life, probably. But yeah, so today we're going to be teaching this game and playing this game. And the beauty of this game is that it has a rolling teach, so you can like just jump straight in for the most part. I guess I'm going to give a little bit of a preamble. All that said, first off, I'm going to say so that our two other co-hosts here are Brian and Steve. And have either of you ever played a version of this game?
I've played John Company 1 twice.
Okay, so you definitely have like some prior experience with this game. So you'll be probably familiar too. Now I have never played John Company 1, right? So I can't be like, oh, this is the difference between the first and the second. I have no clue, right? And Ozzy, you've never played this game, right?
Yeah, this is Steve, and I'm coming in completely ice cold
Right,
to this.
right. You've never played this. So
What
the
is a board
first
game?
it's a board game, exactly. So here's what the board game is. So first of all, we're gonna ignore all of these dudes up here, but I'm gonna leave them there just in case the TTS mod messes up if I delete them. We're gonna be playing a British family. Brian's playing the Hastings family. I'm playing the Walsh family in green. Brian's blue, and Steve's playing the Paxton family in gray. The family names are just for flavor. It's a perfectly symmetrical game with the only difference being that we have different roles, but those will shift over time. What are we doing? We are these British families, and we are cooperatively cooperatively running the East India Company. And it is and what as you will see throughout the game, you can be in favor of the company, or you can be not in favor of the company, or a little bit in between. By the way, I'm getting audio from somewhere. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's. I don't know whose mic it is.
I'll mute, I guess.
Okay. So I'm getting so what we're doing in this game is we're trying to win by, and I'm going to zoom in right now. This is the main board. We're going to try to win by retiring our employees of the company into these estates that in the game are called prizes. And then if you do that, at the end of the game, you will get, well, not at the end of the game. We'll be tracking these victory points up here on the victory point track. You're going to get these victory points. That is the main source of victory points. There are a couple of other sources of victory points. Here's the in-game storing up here, right? You can also have this other quantity called power, which, you know, there's a quantity game that looks like this, right? So it looks like these little circles. That's power. It is unfortunately visually easy to confuse power with victory points. The victory points are like a little diamond, and the power is a circle. But power can translate to victory points, right? This game will go 1 to 5 rounds. Usually it goes 5 or 4. And what you're seeing over here in the power award section is if the game ends in rounds 1, 2, 3, then whoever has the most power gets 3 victory points, second most 1. After that, there's nothing. And if it ends on rounds 4 and 5, then it's 5 and 2 instead of 3 and 1. Now, why does it have 6, 7, 8? Because the full campaign of the game is 8 rounds. We are not playing the full campaign. We are playing the 1710 scenario, which starts here and goes all the way to the 5th round if the company survives that long. It does not use a thing called deregulation and private firms, so there's a whole spot here on the board that we'll not be using, but that's also not something I should be talking about right now. So you get victory points for these estates. You get victory points for power. There are different sources of power. Power can come from being the prime minister, from having passed laws, from having successful military campaigns, all kinds of different sources. And then the other way you get victory points is you can score shares and workshops. So you can have shares in the company, and each share at the end of the game is worth a victory point, unless the company tanked, in which case they're all worth -1 victory point. There are workshops in the game. If the company fails, each workshop is worth a victory point. If the company succeeds, they're worth nothing, right? So workshops are a way to hedge against the company, basically. And then finally, there's another thing like if the company succeeds, then you get to retire one more time. And if the company fails, you draw a company failure card, which is this deck right here that I'm pulling over right now. And it has things in it like here. The British despots of India lower each player's score by 2 VP for each of their governors, blah, 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 right? So there are different things that can happen if the company fails that change up the final scoring a lot. So company failure is always a little bit of a wild card on top of that. Those are the main ways to win the game. So that's the goal of the game. You either help the company succeed, get a lot of shares, have a lot of power. At the end of the game, this tree you're seeing here that I'm zooming in on right now, or that that if you're looking at the chat, this basically says 2 power for each luxury good, 1 power for each share in the company. Whenever you see this heart, that's a share in the company, or nothing for your shipping or your workshops. This tree can change over the course of the game. Like these things can flip around like that, right? There are things that will make that happen, usually through policy changes. We don't know how those work yet. And I promise we'll get to the game very soon. Let's see, is there anything else I should explain up front? What's going to happen in every turn is we're going to go through all of these sequences here, like all of this, and all of this. All of the ones at the bottom are the offices of the company. These will have our people in them, and then that person will carry out whatever that office does. These here are the sequences that happen before the company phase, and these are the ones that happen in the end. The ones in the end are closer to something that you would see in a pandemic, right? There's something that happens like a big, or let's say the Splatter games would call this the admin phase. There's a lot of stuff that happens in India. Likewise, in the front part, you're adjusting things in your family and you're retiring and you're hiring new people into the company. But the way we set up the game is that we randomize all these positions and then we start playing. And we're going to be playing, again, as I said, we're going to be playing this scenario up here called the 1710 scenario, which only plays up to like approximately 1760 or 1770 before the East India Company got split up into individual firms. Because if you flip your player board, you'll see there's a whole other thing here, right? With like ships and shares in your own company. We're never going to get to that part, right? That's the extended version of the game. That's not the interest scenario. We're going to be playing just with the front part of this board. And I get that that's not a whole lot of information to go by, but that's as much as we're going to do right now. The next thing I'm going to tell you is there's a nice automated part here that will now seed the 1710 scenario up here. So I'm going to click that. And what it did is it just said that there's already a law out here called the Royal Protection Law, which says if the company would take any emergency loans, the chairman may discard this card to avoid these loans and cancel any remaining expenses. So that's like a get out of jail free card for the company, which is just there, I think, to stem the bleeding if you don't know what's going on. Now, I'm going to be probably paraphrasing Cole Worley on occasion because I have watched him talk about this game a lot. The 1710 scenario is the most co-op-ish of all the scenarios. Some of them are much more cutthroat. But I will tell you, I've only played this game like 4 or 5 times. I have won this game in a 6-player game by tanking the company in the 1710 scenario. So it's not impossible to do that. I've played the game once with 3 players, and I can tell you that with 3 players, it's much more strategic. It gets way more chaotic with more players because you have to negotiate a lot more. And this is a negotiation game. Right. Everything in the game is tradable, except for people. So you can't trade offices. You can't trade, you'll see later on, there are spouses. You can't trade spouses. There's certain things you can't trade. A thing that looks like you should not be able to trade it. So later on, when you have stock shares in the company, you will have your tokens in here. The second your tokens are in here, they are paper. They do not count as people here, so you can trade shares in the company, but you cannot trade the chairman, right? Even though the chairman counts as stock. We'll get to that when we get to those parts.
This is sort of like in Pax Premier, how the same blocks are used. Like if you stand them up, they're the military. If you lay them down, they're the road. Right.
Yes, sort of. They definitely served a dual purpose, but like it's only for the. I think as far as I remember, it's literally only for that. It's only when they're counted as shares in the company.
Okay.
Okay. So with that said, I did the setup. The setup basically also seeds the India map, and the India map is interesting because here all these spots with money on them, or even the ones that currently are closed have a money on them. Those are where we do trade, and the way the company makes money, for the most part, is by trading with India. And sometimes you do that peacefully, and sometimes you do it through military actions. And as I said earlier, again, maybe I didn't make this clear. This is a Cole Wehrle game. It's about, here's a scenario. He calls it an intervention. And yes, we are imperialist families, basically trying to skim off the top of the company so that we can use that money. So there's money in the company, and there's money with the families. And the money with the families is what you use to buy estates when you retire. And to get that money, you do egregious things like run the military into India to strip mine the country, or do other terrible things. None of this is good, right? None of the things we're going to be doing is like being generous. This is modeling a period of history that basically is the birth of the British Empire at the cost of the Indian people. So that's why I think the first page in this game says this is maybe not for everyone, right? And you have to be able to buy into that. These little things here are the starting money for the different offices, right? So we everything's measured in pounds, and the game says that like 1 pound here is probably equivalent to approximately 1,000 pounds sterling back in the day, which is the equivalent of, I don't know, 10 million now or something. A lot. And there are military offices, and I'm not going to go into any detail on what these all do just yet. First, we're going to run the setup, and then I'm going to go through what each office does as part of the setup. But what we have to do for the setup is we take these 1710 cards up here. I'm going to move these down so they're in the frame, right? These are 12 cards, and normally we give these out at random, so each of us gets 4, and that's the setup. But because even though Brian's played the game before, right? Let's assume that that's not the case. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to splay them all out, and I'm going to do a thing that I've done in every teach up to now, which just makes sense. And I'm going to give myself 2 rolls that normally would be given out randomly. And one of them is the Prime Minister, and the other one is the Chairman, which may sound like I'm cheating, and I am, but not that bad. Because I'm only going to get 2 other. Is it really? It's the last card. So I'm going to take those 2. Zoom in on those, which give me the chairman roll, which is a pretty big roll. Has a lot of power, but it also you need to know a lot about the game to do the chairman roll correctly. So I'm going to do that. Same for the prime minister. You have to do laws and votes and all that. I'm going to do those 2 myself, and then I'm going to take all of these and group them back up and flip them. And now we're going to take, that's not what I wanted to do. Thank you, Tabletop Simulator. Take these, shuffle them, and now I'm going to pull 2 more of those to myself, and then I'm going to give each of you 4, which you can splay out in front of you and flip if you want already, because these are not secret information, right? And then we're going to go over the setup. Because again, this will seed the board with all the positions that are needed to start the game. And let's start with the Hastings family. So let's start with from left to right. So you are the manager of shipping. That means that one of your tokens here is going to go up here to the manager of shipping on the board. Right? That's basically what that means. You have that office. The second part of that card is a share in the company. So one of these blue tokens goes into the share box. And it's 2 money, right? So these are going to be counted with these things here, right? With these little counter boxes that are underneath each of your player board. And then we can flip that. And this is normally you would do this in parallel, but because we're doing it the first time, I'll just show it, right? So second card is President of Madras. That is over here. So Brian, I don't know if you want to do, yeah, exactly. That goes there. You get another share in the company. One of your things goes there, and you get another money. Okay, that flips that card. This one is Commander of the Army of Bengal. That is going to be right there. Exactly. And then the next thing is you get a writer in the Bengal presidency. So that is going to be this box right there. And you get 3 more money. And then finally, you are the president of Bengal. That's not bad. Writer in Bengal, president of Bengal. It's pretty good. And another share in the company. So you're, I'm going to cautiously say you're a company guy. Right, you're a company guy. You like the company. You're running from the Bengal stuff, and or you're running all of Bengali operations. Bengal, as you'll see, starts off pretty open. Right, there's no closed orders here. You can do a lot of trade in these areas, and yeah, that's how it seeds you basically. Let's go over to Paxton. Okay, Paxton is the commander of the Army of Bombay. So Steve, I don't know if you want to do that yourself. So that would go up here. So you're the commander of the Army of Bombay. You have a writer in the Bombay presidency. So that means one of your family members will go here. And writers are in office, right? They're trying to get promoted to be the president, right? Eventually. And you get four money. So you can add your 4 money down there. Okay, next one is you have the Office of Military Affairs. So that's over there. You get a ship and place the ship in the East Indians. So now we're going to see these ships come out for the first time. So you take this card here, the Atlas, and I'm going to take the token and place it in the East Indian Sea. So that's going to go there, right there. And the card goes to your board, right? So you can put that, I don't know, anywhere to the right now. Ships are good because when they're fitted, so that's what happens when the ship is not on the shipyard. When they're fitted, they give you £1 in the bonus phase at the end of a round, right? They also give you some political power. They're a decent investment, I think, if you're in favor of the company. And you get another coin, so you can increase your money over there, right? Okay, so then the next card is, you know what? Let's do all your ships first. You are going to get all 3 ships. So the game starts with 3 ships.
Oh,
right, which is, whoops, what just happened? Here, let's do that. So you're going to get all 3 ships. So here are your other 2 ships. I'm bringing them over here for you.
Right, and that's West and South Indian, right?
That's West and South. So yeah, you can take the names should match with the ships that you have. But wait, where did I put the?
Oh, here, hold on. So that was Britannia, and then
did I just take only one of those? I thought I took 2. Where's B? Oh, there it is.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter which one you put where, right? Because you're gonna have both of those. So one of them will go into the south, and one of them will go into the west.
Okay.
Right. So you are definitely.
I'm a Navy guy.
You're a Navy guy, and that gives you another +1 money. So you're gonna go to your total money at this point should be. Actually, you can just do the money. Your total money is going to be 10.
Yep.
Right. You are also the director of trade, so you're going
Okay.
to put someone in the director of trade spot.
Okay.
Okay, so now we can
Got
group those, flip them, get rid of those. Okay. Put these over here on that stack. Okay, let's set myself up. So the first thing is I get a random blackmail card, so let's shuffle these. And these are hidden information. They're usually strong. Actually, before I shuffle these and I'll show you what one looks like. They always have this little devil on them. Mercantile Connection. Play after a check to force a president or firm to reroll any trade roll with half as many dice. So that's just straight up a screw you to someone trying to do trade. And you'll see it has a little power icon in the bottom left. So it gives you 1 power. You can play that. It usually says when to play it. but you know, they're all meme. I don't think there's a blackmail card in here that isn't straight up a meme card. Letters of introduction. Play when retiring one or more pieces. Act as if you also have retirement discounts equal to those of all other players. So just basically having extramarital affairs with everyone's spouses, right? So it's always something that's gonna probably benefit you and no one else.
Does holding the card give you a power, or does playing it give you?
You have to have it in play. You have to have played it at some point.
It stays in play.
It stays in play, exactly. So I'm gonna pick the top of that at random, and now I can peek at that. So there's Alt Shift, right? That allows me to peek at a card. And now everyone who's watching the stream can see what I just got, but you guys can't. Okay, so I got that blackmail card, and I'm the Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister gets this dial. I'll put this dial in front of my table. And the Prime Minister, at the end of the game, gets 2 power, but also the Prime Minister determines what policy will be voted on, and that's as much as I'll say right now. It's a slightly involved thing. Usually you want to get the Prime Minister out of the hand of the Prime Minister, because otherwise the Prime Minister just accumulates power over the game, because every time the Prime Minister passes a law, he gets a passed law token, which is a power. And the way you oust the Prime Minister is by forming an opposition. But we'll get to that when we get to the so-called Parliament meets phase, which is all the way at the end of the round. So that's my first card. My second card is I am the chairman, as I'd already determined, not randomly. I'm the chairman, and I think I also have, I have a pound. Let's do the money all together. I have 5 total, right, from all these cards. I have 2 shares in the company on top of the chairman, which makes us equally invested in the company, Brian, right? So I have 2 shares, but my chairman counts as a share. So I have 3 shares, you have 3 shares. So there's no majority shareholder right now, which can become important. I am the commander of the Army of Madras. Let's put my person here. And I have a writer in the Madras presidency here. And I am also the president of Bombay. Okay, so that concludes. So group these, flip them, put them back on this stack. That concludes the setup. We are now ready to play the game. The last thing that we should do, though, is up here in the upper left corner, you'll see all these office cards. Take the ones for which you have the office and place them probably in front of your board here so we can see them. So, for example, I'm the chairman, and I think that's all I am the president of Bombay. So you will take them and just place them in front of your family board like so. Because the good thing about these office cards is they show you exactly how to play the office, right? So here on the chairman it says, may seek debt up to track max, taking more than 3 requires the court's approval. And then it's, other stuff, but we'll get to that in a second. Furthermore, when these people retire, it tells you exactly on the back of the card how they get hired again. So I don't know whether the first edition of John Company had all this, but there's a ton of rules explanation on the game, which is amazing. It makes it.
It had.
Yeah, go ahead.
It had the ribbon about it.
There is a cheat sheet over here for events in India and also for all the offices, right? Operation of the company, which is probably enough for me to not have to consult with the rules all the time. I will nonetheless probably have to consult with the rules once or twice because there's a lot going on in this game. But that's all we need to know. Oh, wait. The last thing I have to do before we set up now is I take all these blackmail cards and these, forget what they're called, parliament cards or something, or gifts. And I shuffle them all up and I create the London display, which we will only see at the beginning of the next round. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Randomize. I'm going to randomize these. And now I'm going to flip the top. I'm going to put the top 3 up here in the London season display. And none of them are blackmail yet. let's shift these over here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to keep the deck on the side. Let's just do this. I'm not going to have to explain these cards just yet, but the way you get these cards is by actually retiring offices. So the only way to get into these estates over here is in the London season on the next turn. These offices potentially will retire on dice rolls. And when they retire, hopefully you have money to buy them nice places. If you buy things over here, then you also get to pick one of these prestige cards, I think are what they're called. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say this is shockingly similar to the Game of Life. Nolan Bradley, in terms of get a job, get married, retire, go to the good retirement or the bad retirement.
Yeah, I was like, we're building up for the biggest house at the end.
To be very clear, the way this dial, so this dial down here for the Prime Minister, is directly inspired by Game of Life. Cole has said this. He's like, oh, it'll just be the Game of Life. Like I'm just gonna like rotate around this dial to see what the next policy is. So definitely some things were taken from Game of Life. I don't know whether it applies to anything else other than the dial. Okay, so how does this game start? This London season that the token is on right now, which is the first thing that happens in every round, says attrition, retirement, and prestige cards. We're not doing that on round one. We skip the London season on round one and go straight to the family phase. The family phase says family actions and company shares. So now is the part where you look at your player board or anyone's player board. They're all the same. And on the left side of the player board, it says, what are the family actions? Most things start with the chairman, right? So family phase says, starting with the chairman, each player will take a family action and place their opportunity token, that's this token to the left of your board, on that action. Why do you do that? Because if you pick the same action on the next turn, you get to do it twice. So it encourages you to take a course, which I will say you have to be able to pivot. These actions, I'm going to go over all of them right now. They're not complicated. None of them are complicated. In fact, the ones on the right are trivial, but the ones on the left are a little bit harder. There is enlist writer, enlist officer, seek share. Enlist writer means you take one of your family and you put it either in the writer box of Bombay, Madras, or Bengal. Right? Writers have a bunch of functions. When you do trade with India, those are the people who go out and do the trades, and they get money for it into their personal bank. The company gets what's printed here, but each writer gets £1 for their family for just doing the trade. They're also the next in line to become the president, which has a lot of power because they decide how the money is spent. Generally, I think it's safe to say and I generally don't want to talk too much strategy, but I think this is an important one. Enlisting a writer is you are pro-company. You are trying to get the company to succeed because you want to see it flourish. You want to have power over the company. You want to be the person deciding where trades happen, whether military happens at all. You have a lot of power to try to determine the fate of the company. You could also use that power to sink it. But for the most part, I'd say in general, enlisting writers is more of a pro-company move. Enlisting an officer is as simple as putting an officer in this future officer's military box, which the military affairs government person or company person needs to then assign to a military part of the company. Now, the military actions are the ways in which you open closed orders, the ways in which you gain control over regions, the way in which you loot the country for money that then goes to your family. And overall, it gives you more attack surface, right? So when we get to this phase called events in India, the country will be, anxiety. There's anxiety in the country because the company is coming in. So that's what I call, a little bit the pandemic phase, because there will be events that can trigger. Some of them are good, most of them are bad for the company. And if they overthrow company-controlled regions, that is a way to tank the company. So up here you'll see, we haven't talked about this at all yet, we'll see a track called Company Standing. If this token here ever gets to this F, the game ends immediately. One cool way to do that is region loss during this turn. right? If you don't, right now, the company doesn't control any regions. So we haven't taken governorship of any of these states of India, right? They're all self-controlled. They're either empires, or they are oppressed by an empire, or they are autonomous. Those are not the words used in the game. There's empire, there's invasion, crisis type, depending on whether it's autonomous or not. Again, those are words that I'll look up in the rule sheet again. But basically, I'll have to explain this all when we get to that phase, and I think it's overkill to do that right now. Most people think that, like, of all my game designers, they think that administering this phase is the biggest pain in the ass of this game, and they're not entirely wrong. It's a lot. There's a lot going on. Like, this admin phase would benefit heavily from scripting, right? In the way that Food Chain Magnate benefits from scripting, and all those games benefit from scripting, to the detriment of our understanding of what's going on, right? That's always the trade-off. Anyway, I'm not going to go into the philosophy of the design of this, but the Enlist Officer action just tries to boost the military. The military also costs money, right? And so it goes into the company spending, which is another good way to tank the company by just exceeding the military spending by a lot. And you do that by enlisting officers. The last one here is Seek Share. Seek Share is a little bit weirder. It's how you get shares in the company. So you see this track here with 2, 3, 3, 4, and 5. So when you seek a share, you will pay an amount of money, and then you will put one of your tokens on, let's say I just wanted to seek a share. You'll put one of your tokens on any one of these spots and pay that amount of money. Why would you pay 5 instead of 2? Because whoever's in the front of this queue gets to generate a share first. And the only way to generate shares is by having debt in the company. So right now, if I seek a share, at the end of the family phase, it would be like, oh, you're first in line to seek a share. Does the company have debt? No, you don't get a share. You'd stay there in the queue for the moment the company does have debt. And trust me, the company will have debt. Say the company had 3 debt and this was the situation. Then I would get the share and the company debt would go down by 1, right? So we're buying the company's debt basically by having shares. Why would you want shares in the company? Well, because the majority shareholders get to decide on the next chairman, assuming the chairman retires, and have a lot of power in general. And reminder, they're worth a victory point at the end of the game if the company succeeded. So again, buying shares in the company is a pro-company move for the most part. Sometimes people hedge their bets, right? There's a fuzzy space. You're not pro or anti-company for the most part in this game. You can play straight up adversarial or cooperative, but usually you're somewhere in between, which is one of the tenets of this game. And then the other 3 actions are buy shipyard, buy workshop, and buy luxury. And those are these 3 cards up here respectively. The shipyards, we've already seen them, right? What do you need ships for? Well, they generate revenue for you. They give you political power in form of these little ballot boxes here. And they are the things that you need in order to generate trade with these spots. So later on, when we get to the actions of the presidencies down here, you'll see that you can only trade with as many spots on the board as you have ships in that region. So right now, if this was the state, and say Brian wanted to trade, you could only trade for £6 because you only have 1 ship in the sea. Whereas if it was like this, now you could trade for £11 because you have 2 ships, right? So, but we'll
get these regions divided up exactly. I don't like which ship card.
Oh, so this is the South.
To
which... This is the South Sea. This is the East Sea, sure. And this is the West Sea. And the boundaries are here. Sorry, the West Sea goes all the way around here. Madras, Mysore, Bombay. The South Sea is Madras, and the East Sea is Bengal. And the thing I'll say is, and again, you know what? I'll say it later. We haven't gotten to trade yet. I don't want to jump the gun here. So that's shipyards. Luxury is straight up 2 victory points. Costs 4. It's not cheap. But if you're just buying victory points, go for it, right? Also, luxury, whoever has the most luxury at the end of the game right now gets 2 power per luxury. So this would also be worth 2 power if this tree here were the state at the end of the game, which it very likely will not be. But the danger here is it has a window icon. You'll see that window icon here as well on these estates. And the window icons are a tiebreaker at the end of the game if there's a tie. So they sound like they're a good thing. But for the most part, they're a liability because they can be taxed by a law. And when they get taxed, right, if you look at the Prime Minister dial, you'll see whenever there's a tax, it also sometimes says tax plus window tax, right? Not always, because when shipyards or workshops are taxed, that's not the case. But whenever luxury is taxed, or over here, there's also a tax and window tax. Each of those costs you £1, right? So that's just, another failsafe to make sure that those things are not exclusively good. And then the third thing is a workshop, which is expensive, costs £5. But it gives you a £1 bonus on the bonus round. So if you buy them in round 1 and the company survives, they will have amortized over the 5 rounds of the game. And furthermore, they are a victory point if the company fails. They're not minus victory point if the company succeeds. But each workshop is also 2 ballot boxes for voting. And voting can get pretty important. Again, if you're trying to wrestle the prime minister from someone, it's easier to do that with the ballot boxes, because if you don't have ballot boxes and you want to win votes, you have to pay money. And of course, money is at a premium for the most part. Sometimes families are filthy rich. So I'm going to start so it's going to go myself and then because we're going to go in clockwise order. So it's going to be myself first, then Brian, then Steve. So what am I going to do here? Shares at the moment don't make sense. I'm going to say I'm potentially somewhat pro company, and maybe I'm interested in seeing what happens. So I'm going to actually enlist a writer. So that means I take this opportunity token and I put it over the enlist writer spot on my player board. I'm going to take one of my writers and put it in the presidency of Bengal. So there can be any number of writers here, right? It can be like 10 writers here if you want to. I've never seen that many, but could happen. Okay, Brian, that means here we go. Oh, wait, one thing I forgot. Your family disc, that little disc, put that up on the 0 spot of the victory point tracker. That's just a way that we track victory points. That should always reflect the game state. There's nothing hidden about victory points. Yeah, Brian, so you get to pick one of those 6 actions. That's your first autonomous action in the game.
It's actually controlling the order here. Starting with you and then
starting with me and then clockwise. You're next in clockwise position.
Oh. Okay.
Right?
And did you go first because you're the prime minister?
I gave first because I'm the chairman.
The chairman, yes.
Yeah,
okay.
The chairman. It says on the player board, if you look here, family phase starting with the chairman and then going in clockwise order.
So what are the 4 vacancies referred to under enlist writer?
So in the London season phase, what can happen is that more than 3, like 4 or more of these offices here retire. And then if that's the case, then there's a bonus for enlist writers, which means you can place 1 more. What that means is that if 4 places retired next turn, and I did enlist writer again, I'd be able to place 3 writers, right? Because it's already times 2, but then it's plus 1 if there are 4 plus vacancies. That's what that means.
Well, my inclination is I am very heavily vested in the company, but have no control over any of its trade. So I'm inclined to get a shipyard, I think.
That's not a bad idea.
So let's do that. And that's 2 money. Is that right?
That's 2 money, right? And then you.
Okay.
So the first thing that happens now is you get the top of that deck, and now you get the ship that goes with it, which is also the top of that little tokens. But now this goes to the card, right? So now what that means is you have a ship. It's just not fitted into one of the seas yet.
Will I be able to do that because I'm the manager of shipping? I hope.
Yes. 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 I'm going to just say yes for now.
Okay.
Sorry. The physics on these
All right.
tokens is garbage.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Yes. And you'll see in a second. Because I'm obviously on your side, right? Like, I'm the chairman. I'm not trying to tank the company. Could I be lying right now? Yes, I could. But I'm not. Because I'm teaching the game. Okay. So that's it. That means it's Steve's turn. So you get to now tell us what you're going to do on your turn.
So I feel like I'm in an interesting spot because I have no shares in the company. I have command over military affairs, and I have the 3 ships that are in the sea right now.
Oh yeah, you can already make this game interesting.
Right.
Now beware that immediately exposing yourself as the traitor.
Right.
Steve, I'm sure you've played a game that has a traitor mechanic.
Right.
In fact, I bet you've played more than one game in your life that has a traitor mechanic. You know that exposing yourself as the traitor in round 1 is a sure shot way to kill yourself, right?
Right.
So
yeah, it's just
here's what you can do. You can be like plausible deniability. This game is all about plausible deniability. You're like,
right.
I just think we should also have some military presence, right? Oh, I definitely forgot something in the setup. No, I didn't forget in the setup. It already does it in the setup. Each of these armies starts with a regiment, right? That's these little tokens up here. Regiments are unkillable, and they do cost money, right? So they do cost the company money. There's ways to get more regiments in, but right now, basically, each of these armies has a commander and a regiment. If later on, I'm going to use your military affairs, say you had an officer here and you assign that officer to Bombay. These are equal strength, right? So they're like, each of them count as 1 in terms of military strength. What that means we'll get to later. But they also have these 4 higher militaries, these militia. And I'll explain that when we get to the military, but that's basically, there's a pretty good BBC documentary on the East India Company, and what the British did is they hired locals to kill locals for the sake of the company. And that's what that's modeling, right? These are 1 turn only, though, so you hire them for a turn. For example, if you hire the Seths, the Jagat Seths, you pay 4 and you get 2 military strength, and that's only for that turn. But they do cost salary for that turn. So yeah, you could start by saying, cool, I'm the military person. I'm going to put someone in the military.
Right. I'll enlist someone. I mean, it looks like we have a lot of trade routes to open up anyway, right? So I think it's beneficial for the company.
It's
I mean, I'd also say just, not having any shares in the company is not terminal. You also, the company effectively needs your assets.
right.
So
Right.
to some extent that puts you in a position of power.
It's
Although
fine.
I've already tried to hit on that personally.
I think it's pretty cool that you're like, I don't know, maybe we need some military. Fine, perfectly cool. Okay, so that ends the family phase, right? Because there's no shares to be moved around. So we go to firms. We'll never play firms for this scenario. We go to hiring. Everyone's hired, right? Later on, some of these spots will be vacant, and then they need to be hired. But that's not the case right now. So we go to chairman. Now, if you look on the chairman card, you'll see it says may seek debt up to track max. What does that mean? So we have a track here for company debt, and on that track, it goes up to 8. So so what it says here is taking more than 3 requires the court's approval. The court is the court of directors, which I do not have a majority in right now. So what that means is if Brian approved, then I could take more than 3 debt. I could literally take 8 debt, which is a terrible idea. So for now, because it's the first round, I don't even know that I'm going to ask Brian for permission. I'm just going to take 3 debt, right? Now, each time I take a debt, here's another track I haven't explained yet. Down here, the bottom track is the company wealth. That is the money in the company. Starts off at 5, right? The token's here at 5. Each debt gives me 5 pounds. So now I take the company wealth from 5 to 20. There we go. I can do anything I've done up to now, I can do without asking for permission. Again, if I wanted to go higher on the debt track, I would have to ask Brian for permission. If I had another share here right now, I would have to ask no one for permission. Because I'd be the majority shareholder. That's another reason. Majority shareholder gives you way too much power in this game. So it even says on the card, right? 5 pounds per debt. Then allocate company balance. So what does that mean? It means I have to now allocate these 20 pounds to these 5 offices. And I cannot keep money in the company. I have to share it. I have to split it. And this is why the person teaching the game should start as the chairman. Because if I'm like, hey, split the money somehow, and you're like, how? I'm like, oh, now I have to explain every office. I'm not going to explain every office now. I'm just going to loosely say what they do, and then I'm going to split the money around. The director of trade is over here, does a special envoy action, rolls dice. We haven't even gotten to the best part of this game yet, which is this is a push your luck game. And on success, you get to open an order in a region not controlled by the company, and then the director of trade is allowed to move ships and writers around without asking for permission. Right? The director of trade gets to move, but doesn't need money for it. So the only thing the director of trade needs money for is for these envoy actions. Now, here's where the game gets interesting. So right now, if I do nothing and I just say, you know what, 3 is enough. Let's say it's Ozzy's turn. Ozzy's like, you know what, I'm going to roll for envoy. That means you get 3 dice, right? Up to 3. You'd have to pay the 3 money and now look at your player board. There's a chances of success table there. It tells you exactly what the chances of success, failure, or catastrophic failure are for 1 through 7 d6s. When you roll the dice, and this will happen in every check in this game, you roll them and you only count the lowest. So the 6s don't matter. What matters is the 1. And that's a success, because a 1 and a 2 is a success, a 3 and a 4 is a failure, and a 5 and a 6 is a catastrophic failure. And usually when you roll a catastrophic failure, you retire. No, you don't retire. You die. You don't even retire.
Wow.
Exactly. It's funny. It's like, it's so good. This game is so good. This is again one of my favorite parts of the game, right? So you can mitigate that, right? You're like, I don't want to die, so maybe I'll pay another money to get a 4th die. That is all decided by the office holder. What I'm deciding right now is whether I want to give the director of trade more money, because it turns out you can do that special envoy action as many times as you want. Only that every time you have to spend the money to get the dice. So if you'd done this with 3 dice, you'd be at 0 now. So I can be like, I do want you to open 2 orders, right? But I don't even know if that's true, because right now I only really care about Bombay, but I would like this closed order to be open because I can't trade there otherwise. We're only going to get 1 extra ship, which is not a whole lot. I kind of probably should have gone for shipyards as well. Usually you want more ships to do more trade, but it's fine. That's what we did for now. So I'm going to leave the director of trade there for now. The manager of shipping. What does the manager of shipping do? The manager of shipping is pretty benign, and all the manager of shipping does is basically fit ships, right? So you pay 3 from your coffers to fit a ship. This office doesn't roll for checks, right? You're just like, yeah, I'm going to fit your own. You'd probably want to fit your own ship. Right now you have 3 money. You can fit a ship with that. I kind of would like you to also place maybe a company ship, which you can only do if all player ships are fitted. Now, why would I prefer a company ship over one of these black temporary ships? They're called extras. The extras only last for 1 turn, and then they go away. The company ships are on the other side of the extras, so when you flip it around, you see the company ships. The company ships are indestructible ships that are not assaulted by weather. What's weather, you ask? We'll get there. But it's annoying when it happens. When weather happens, ships can take hits or straight up be sunk, in which case they go back to the shipyard and have to be fitted again. Right? So, where are all those coming from?
Accidentally
Okay.
hit a button.
So, oh, you put them in your hand. That's hilarious. Okay, so I I could say, you know what? I'm going to give you 8 coins, and I'm going to reduce the company money to 15 because I do want you to also fit a company ship. So
I'm reading this as in I actually have to spend down to 2.
you have to
I
spend down
can't
to 2,
stop.
but what that means is you could not follow my orders and take
Sure.
and instead of fitting one company ship, you could fit 2 extras because that would also bring you down.
I'm a
Well, it's not your
company
turn.
man.
Yeah, it's
Is
not
what
your.
I'm told.
It's not your turn yet. I'm just saying
Oh,
that comes out. That's going to be when we get to the director of shipping. I'm still on the chairman action
oh,
right
right,
now.
right, 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 right.
I'm just
Sorry.
talking out loud what I'm doing with the money. So now I have 15 left in the coffers, and of course I'm interested in getting Bombay to trade. Right. So normally I would say I'd give Bombay more because I hold the office, um, which is a little bit disgusting. But it also means that I'm really asking the director of trade to open up here, which director of trade probably won't, because director of trade's more interesting in opening up stuff that will be beneficial for him. Um, let's just say I would put, you know what? Let's be kind in the beginning. Let's be kind in the beginning. I'm gonna put this to 0, and I'm gonna put 5 in each of these banks, just to say, just as a sign of goodwill. That's one of my what one of my friends always says. He's like, as a show of good faith. As a show of good, exactly. It's never good faith. It's never in good faith. But as a show of good faith, I'm gonna make it equal. That ends the chairman. That's all the chairman does. Chairman takes debt, splits the money up, which is powerful, and then it moves on to the director of trade, which is Steve.
Okay. So if I go back to the card,
Right.
so the dice, I would pay 1 for each dice.
Yes.
To be able to
So if you want to guarantee that you that you die without retirement, only spend 1 money. So
yeah,
so what I would ask you is to spend all 3 and try the envoy action, right?
yeah, that's
Now
what I'm thinking.
now the thing is you do not have to decide yet what you're going to do. You can roll the dice first, and you don't have to be like, if I succeed it'll be this. No, you can just roll the dice, which I always tell people hit R a lot in Tabletop Simulator. Some of my friends do this. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's fine. You succeeded, right? So you rolled a 1. I usually grab all of them and do something like that, but whatever. Because I have friends who do this. Right? And I'm like, come on. Right?
Yeah.
That's like I want this to be a 3, right? So
Yeah.
anyway,
you can sort of cheat a little bit, or at least it seems that way.
You succeeded. It was a 1. There's
Right.
another success, and now you get to decide what you want to do with that. Open 1 order in a region not controlled by the company, or open trade with China. Okay, I'm not gonna explain that yet. It's a whole other thing. There's a whole, if you look in the upper left corner, there's a whole board, Superintendent of China, and you trade with China based on how many areas the company controls that have these little trade boxes in them on the map. Here, here. We don't have any. The only time you would open trade with China is when you have something to trade with China. And when we have that, I'll explain it. But right now, it's not necessary.
Right. We haven't established anything yet,
No.
so there's no point in even.
Nope. There is not. So what I would say is that you should now decide which order you'd want to open. Now, the thing is, so for that, you need to know what trade is. I'll tell you, trade always starts at the home port for Bombay, that is here, and you'll always see it as this thicker outlined oval, right? Trade always starts here. For Madras, it always starts here, and for Bengal, it always starts here, right? So then you have to trace a path to these different nodes if you want to do trade with more spaces, but again, you can only trade with as many ships as you have. That said, right after your envoy action, you will be able to shuffle around writers and or ships. So you could do this if you wanted me to trade in Bombay, which you shouldn't, because why would you do that for me? For you, honestly, the best bet would be to probably open this closed order down here in Madras, but or this one, because that's a 7 and this is only a 4. That said, every time you cross a border into a different region of India, when you do trade, you have to subtract a die from the check. So there's a cost to trading in multiple different regions. This looks really juicy, right? But again, you may not be interested in that money goes to the company. But the writers and the president benefit from the trade as well. But that's all I'll tell you about trade for now. Right now, you have to decide where you're going to open an order.
Okay. Well, I mean, the one thing about Bombay, you were saying not to do that. That's the one place I do have a writer in.
It is true. It is true. Well, you only have one writer, and the writers always start from the first place. Okay. Which means this would still be fulfilled if there was a second ship over here. But it would be filled by one of these, which is just like a filled token, right? Okay. So that money would you would get £1 for that for sure, though. Okay. I should say, right? So it's not good for you, but say you trade in again. Bengal won't matter because there's 2 spots here and there's already 2 writers, but there's not 2 ships yet, right? Right. That said, when the manager of shipping fits all these ships, the manager of shipping decides which sea they get fitted to. So that's another thing that we would want to negotiate with Brian. But again, this here looks juicy for you. This looks juicy. I would open one of these 3, right?
Right. And I was gonna say, it seems like we're more locked down in Madras than anywhere else, right? You get to that £5, and then there's really nowhere else.
No, I would open this one if I were you. The Hyderabad one. So you take that off. It goes to the bag. Okay. Done. That's it. Now you do the second part of your action, which is you may move 1 or 2 writers or ships. So you can do a total of 2. It can be 2 writers, 2 ships, or 1 of each, or 1 or 0. And for your actions, you can take a ship and move it into another sea, or you can take a writer and move it into another presidency. Or you just leave everything as is. The money is pretty balanced right now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And we have ships in all 3 right now.
And there's 2 more ships coming.
And Brian has 2 more ships coming. Right. So I feel like we're in a balanced position.
Pretty much. And you'll see what that means in the next turns more than right now, right? Okay, so you pass. So that passes that.
I'll let it lie.
Okay.
No, I was gonna say I'll let it lie.
Okay, good. So let's move to manager of shipping. So yeah, Brian, all you do is fit. Well, first of all, you do have to fit. You can't fit a company ship unless you fit your own. The first thing I would do is fit your own, right? So that costs you 3, and you put it in any sea, and that's going to cost you 5. I'll put it down to 0. So now you can fit those anywhere you like. It doesn't have to be in the same sea. Can be in different seas.
So, is there a difference between which I put where?
No, but later on there's going to be events that happen like storms, and the company ship is again a thing that is immune to storms, right? So right now you could do 3 trade up here. You could do 2 trade in Bombay, which I would be in favor of. You could do 2 trade over here. So this will get 5 and 7 if it works. This will only get 4 and 3 if it works. So even though I want to trade in Bombay, from a company point of view, trying to go for 5 and 7 is obviously better.
Also, I was putting it over here as kind of like a tip of the hat to Steve for not doing anything wacky.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does this actually benefit him directly?
No, because
I'm not really clear on the writers.
So the writers get a £1 for when they actually make a trade. So it doesn't matter whether Steve would make this trade or this trade or this trade, right? It doesn't benefit.
They only make one trade.
They only make a writer can only. Well, I can make as many trades as ships. So right now, if I actually traded over here, I could trade here and here. But the writer will only get £1. If he had 2 writers there, he would get £2, right? Because then they would go in both spots. So it's not going to give him any additional benefit. Whereas
Appreciate the
this-
sentiment, Brian.
yeah.
But
I mean, I wish that Steve had opened up this order so that I would get more money over here, but that didn't happen. And I'm teaching the game, so I'm not going to be as big a dick about it right now.
Well, and so
So if you do that, then the company could trade
Yeah.
here, here, and here.
Yeah. I'll benefit from this. Well, I benefit in Madras
You
or
benefit
Bengal.
in Madras or there, and this definitely benefits the company. And I think eight money is enough to try that.
And these dice rolls are
I
They
didn't
don't affect
explain.
the
I didn't
ships.
explain that. No, they don't. But I didn't explain them yet
Okay.
because I want to get to those when we get to trade.
all right. Well, I think we'll leave it in this configuration unless anyone objects.
Nope. I'm
think
okay
that's
with that. Not that we'd have any objection power anyway, but
Oh, I mean,
yeah, no, I get it. Okay, so that ends the manager of shipping. The manager of shipping doesn't do anything other than that. And now we go to military. Now the military does two things. First of all, you may transfer pieces. So what do these icons mean? The drums are regiments, and the pistols are officers. You don't have any officers yet in an army, right? You have a regiment in each of the armies. So you could move two of these. You could move them all to Bengal if you wanted to. You could leave them in their respective boxes. And the one thing I'll tell you about them is that if we ever take over property in India and expose ourselves to attacks, you usually want to have some military not exhausted that turn to weather storms of attacks that may come at the company during the events in India phase, which we have not gotten to yet.
Right.
So, for a lack of a better expression, what I'm saying is I wouldn't change anything right now, and unless you have specific military plans. Now, the thing I'll tell you is when the presidencies come up, those are the people. So these military office, these commanders aren't offices of the company. They are commanded by their respective presidents, right? So, for example, in Bombay, I have to at least give the military an option to act, but I don't have to give the military any money to buy militia. So I could just choke the army, and that's what I'm going to do in Bombay. I don't want the Bombay army to attack Bombay, right? In fact, I don't want anyone to attack anyone right now.
Right.
The benefit of attacking is that you loot the area for money, which can be good for the families that have officers in those places, because the officers get skim the loot basically. And you can open all closed orders in a region, which right now there are only 2 closed orders. When you deploy with the military, you have to start in the home region, which is Bombay, Madras, and Bengal respectively. Once you've taken over those regions, you can go to adjacent regions. But I don't think that's. I mean, I have command over Bombay, and I will not give the military any money. You, on the other hand, can pump all the money. Sorry, not you. It's actually, sorry, it's
Brian.
not Ozzy, it's Brian. Brian could pump all this money into military, which I also doubt that Brian's going to do. So, again, you have to make up to 2 moves, and then after you're done making the moves, you have to assign all the officers in this officers in training box to an army. Right?
So yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna. I agree with you that keeping a balanced military presence is okay. I don't see any reason to change that.
Right. So then you
But
take
then
that.
for-
You just take that and put it in the army you'd like to have it in. Which I would say put it in the army that you think is most likely to deploy, because then your family is going to get money.
Okay. And I mean, just looking at, I guess, the loot options between these. So Bombay has 4 pounds, Madras has 5, Bengal has 6.
So it's always that token plus
Okay.
the height of the tower in that region.
Mm.
Right. So, and the height of and that, sorry, 4 times the height of the tower. So for
Oh.
Bombay it would be 8. For Madras it would be 10. Sorry, for Madras it would be 9, and for Bengal it would be 10. Right?
Okay.
And that would get split among all participating units. And I haven't explained military yet, so we'll get there. We'll get there when we get there.
I'm just gonna chase the higher number and put in Bengal for now, because I
Okay.
know I want to at least I already put enlisted 1 officer. I want to make sure that I'm actually training.
Yeah,
them up.
that sounds great. Okay, so now we get to the presidencies. Now the good thing about the presidencies is that they're all the same. So they all do the same thing. So once I explain one, I'll have explained all of them. And fortunately, I am the president of Bombay. So the president of Bombay has multiple things. It's the presidency itself, it's the military, and it's potential governorships that are associated once the company takes over regions of India, which we have none of right now. The first thing I have to decide is who goes first, the military or the presidency. And I am going to allow the military to go first, but I'm not going to give the military any money. So I personally don't want you to deploy. And here's the thing. So now I'm going to explain military real quick. Say, Steve, you wanted to deploy anyway. You're like, no, you're giving me the chance to deploy. I'm going to do it. A deployment, the way it works is you get to roll a number of dice. That is the number. So you'd have to exhaust this unit, right? It would go down here to its exhausted part. But the number of dice you get to roll is the number of strength minus the tower height. And the tower height of Bombay is 1. So you get to roll 0 dice. There's a rule in the game that says you may never do a non-action. So you're never allowed to do a thing that is doomed to failure. And that, for example, would be because you're only allowed to roll 0 dice, you are not allowed to deploy. If you had put your military up there and I'd say you're not getting any money, you'd be like, okay, I don't care. I'm going to exhaust both of these and I'm going to roll a die. And then you would do the same success check, right? With the same consequences, which means that if it would fail, so say you only rolled a die and it landed on a 6, your military officer would would die immediately, right?
This one.
Actually, not that one. This guy. The office would go empty, right? So, but you put it down here, which means me giving you, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say like, hey, Steve, go ahead. Do the military action. And then you'd say, pass. Because you can't do it.
Can't do it.
You can't do it. So what that means is I go to presidency. So presidency, the only thing the presidency can do is trade. That's the only action presidency has. And now I'm going to explain trade. On trade, you decide which of these ovals you're trading with before you do the roll. Now, there's only one ship here, so I can literally only trade with that. That's all I can do. And because it's not crossing into a different region of India, I would just be able to roll as many dice as I want, up to 8, which I think is too many dice. I think, what am I willing to risk here? I think if I get an 80% chance of success, I think I'm happy. That's probably I should go for 5. Probably I should go for 5, but I'm going to go for 4 just to show what this looks like, right? So I'm going to spend 4 money. You know what? I should go for 5. I'm going to go for 5. I'm going to spend 1 more. I'm going to roll these. Oh boy. That was close. Okay, so because of the 2, it's a success. And now I'm going to put out this rider here. We're going to get 4 money into the bank. So now down here on the company money, I adjusted that from 0 to 4. Now, because you have a rider, that means you get 1 money into your personal stash. So you go from 10 to 11, Steve. Down here. Right. I successfully traded in 1 spot as the president, so I get 1 money. I go from 5 to 6. And that ends the trade action, right? That's all there is when you do the trade. You don't do multiple trades. If a trade fails and you still have money in the coffers, you can try again. Unless it's a catastrophic failure, in which case the president's already dead. So that ends the presidency. Go ahead.
I'm reading it that if you were to have crossed a border, it's not like you go to one space and then another test for the next space. Like
No.
you have to.
It's
all
the same roll.
The same roll.
It's all the same roll. And I would have had to pay 5 for 4 dice if I had crossed the border. If I crossed 2 borders, I would have had to pay 5 for 3 dice. Right? So if you're in Madras and say you want to trade in Mysore and Hyderabad at the same time, because this is open, sorry, not that, because this is open and you have 4 ships here, that would cost you 6 for 4 dice, because you're trading in 3 regions. And it's always one action. It's not separated into multiple actions. Which means we now get to the presidency of Madras. And that is Brian. So, yeah. You could again say, hey, military, go ahead. Doesn't matter right now whether the military goes first or second, because similar to Bombay, the military can do absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I'm good.
Wait, no, it's Brian's choice.
Oh, okay. Well,
because Brian's the president of Madras and also, incidentally, the president of Bengal.
Okay.
And I have the military command of Madras. So, but I can't. Even if you let me go first, there's nothing I can do.
Oh, I see. Okay, I was thinking off of military affairs. I had the okay, but the individual office. It's
the individual. It's a decision of the officers, right?
I see.
So, if I were to give the military money, what?
Oh, interesting.
You would be able to buy.
So if you gave the military money, then for 3 I could buy 2 extra power, and for an additional 4 or only 4, I could buy another 2 extra power. Right.
That's it.
That's what you giving the army of Madras. Basically, you also, to be clear, you don't technically give me money. You just buy these militia for me.
Sure.
And then I could still not deploy them, right? It is in my power to say, yeah, sure, give it to me. And then I'm immediately, nope, right? Because nothing's binding in this game. But I wouldn't, again, I wouldn't, I've never seen that happen, to be honest. But if I were you, and if you're pro company, then I think your move is you have 2 ships in the South Sea. I think you want to do this and this trade to get 12 pounds into the company, and on the other side, get 2 pounds yourself for yourself, because you do 2 trades. And for that, I would roll at least. I would want to roll at least 4 or 5 dice, 6. So that's 5 or 6 money, right? Which means you would not be able to buy military anymore.
Sure. Yeah, I was just kind of debating. Sorry, on there. Turn on investment on opening this up.
You can't.
Because is that what I would?
I'm not.
Oh, that's not the military.
That is the military. If you wanted to,
okay.
If you wanted me to march in there, I mean, if you really want me to march in there, then I'll try it. I don't think that's a good idea, but if you've all never played the game before, so you could just say, hey, I'm going to pay 3 to give you 2 military power, or basically 3 military power, but it's -1, so I get to roll 2 dice for the check.
2 dice. Okay, that's not looking great. All right, so let's spend 6. Okay, and so I'll roll 5 dice.
Roll 5 dice. And that's a success. Okay, so what happens now is my writer goes here, and a filled order token goes here. And that's a total of 12 pounds for the company. So the company budget goes to 17. Was it 5? Now, you did 2 successful trades, so your family gets 2 pounds. Right, so you go to 6. And I have 1 writer in the trade, so I go to 7. And that's the trade, right? That you have now exhausted. You could, now you basically still have to give me a moment to act, which I will say I obviously can't do anything. And that ends the presidency of Madras.
The fact that the diligence was there, that this is not the time where I would earn my dollar for that. That's a different part of the game.
That's a different part of the game. That's the bonuses phase over here. At the end of after all the offices have acted. Which we're getting to very soon. So now we move to the presidency of Bengal. Again, it's to you, Brian, right?
Yeah.
And you happen to be the military commander in the presidency of Bengal, right? Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. One thing I forgot to mention for the military affairs office, if you had, this is an administrative phase, Steve. If you had 2 officers here, then you would have become that, right?
Oh, interesting.
So, and you
Okay.
don't, and it's not a choice. If there's ever a majority of another person, then that person becomes the new commander, right? So
Does would my commander become an officer,
yes.
or does he?
No, your commander would become an
promoted?
officer. Yes. You get
Wow,
You
that's
basically get
interesting.
demoted.
It's like buying shares
is
in the
a-
military.
Because these
basically.
Interesting discipline.
These three aren't offices, and they're not hired during the hiring phase. They just happen during the military affairs phase. But yeah, so you
it
get
does
to,
seem.
yeah, go ahead.
Just I guess.
I mean, I think you want to do these trades, right?
Well, yeah, but I want to take a look at this. I don't these Bengal you can hire. They don't seem like a great value for starters.
They're not great, and the thing is, they only stay out for one turn. They're gone the next turn, right?
Mm.
If I happen to spend 4, then I'd be well. I'm the commander, so yeah. So I'd have 4 minus 1, 3, which would give me 70% chance of. What would that even get me though?
So,
you get
so you get that
6 plus.
No. So
yeah.
careful. Here's how looting works. So let's say you did that. Let's simulate that. So let's say you spent 4 for this, and then you'd send all 3 in to roll 2 dice, and say it was a success. So first of all, you would order them like this. And now that means there are 4 parties involved, right? It's always the commander plus all activated armies. So you'd get 6 plus 4 for the tower. That would be 10. That would be split up as follows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that means that blue and white would each get 3 pounds to the family. The other money would just go straight back to the bank, because you still have to split the loot with the others, but obviously that doesn't go anywhere, right? So a successful deployment up there would mean it is now company controlled. No trades would open because they're already open. You'd establish the governorship of Bengal, which is an office. They're all up here in the stack in the upper left corner of the table, and those can tax and do other mean things to the country, which I haven't explained yet because I'm explaining everything as it comes up. So you could do that, but I will tell you right away, you are exposing yourself to potential attacks from this empire here, which of course nicely ties into Pax Pamir.
Yeah,
right. Because it's the fall. I'm blanking on the name now, but there's a fall of an empire that is basically what triggers Pax Pamir in 1820, and that happens to be Durrani, the Durranis, right?
Oh,
this is the Durrani Empire in 1710.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah. I definitely have some nihilistic urges to, kind of. But let's pause on that for one turn, I guess, because I think in terms of the family benefit, going on that expedition is going to net. Well, I mean,
3 pounds is.
Well, is it?
3 pounds is.
But I'm going to get 3. I'm going to get 3 pounds for playing it straight too.
You are getting it 2 pounds because it's going to be 2 successful trades. Wait, 3 pounds because you also have a writer. Yes, you're going to get 3 pounds. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you could get 6 pounds if you did both, but I think doing both is going to be rough.
Seems risky.
It's risky. It's not impossible. You could spend 4 to get the military and another 4 to roll 4 dice. You can try that. That's a ballsy move, but it's possible. And if it works, you get 6 pounds to your family.
If the military were to fail, like what are the repercussions of that?
If the military
so the
fails,
officer that I have there, does he die in that case?
The officer gets auto retired, and every time an officer marches in, they always have to roll a 1d6 to see if they survive the deployment. Again, if you look at this board over here, this operations of the company, I think military, you'll see that commander is the most. You see from the space on that sheet that commander is the most complicated office when deployment happens, because then you have to there's a lot of steps. It is the most complicated office when it triggers, but they're not. It's pretty much algorithmic, right? It's very procedural.
Okay. I think that, let's see here.
Well,
I'm
first
just trying to choose between.
you have to decide who's going first, and you
Oh,
have to decide whether you're going to buy a
well,
militia or not.
but that's what I'm thinking through. So I'm kind of debating
Well,
on.
also
I'm
it's
going to
it's you,
do.
so it's you
Yeah.
have full control over this turn.
Uh, uh, just call me Brian Bengal. So
Like,
I'm debating between. I want to do trade. I'm debating between spending 5 versus 4 on it because if I, 5 will I think certainly easily guarantee that. I'm a little worried though if I spend 5, I might see a little cut in the budget next round, and we'll be left with 3, which isn't great. So I'm
So I wouldn't worry about that too much because every round there's more money coming in, right? We're gonna do more. I'm gonna create more debt, assuming I'm still the chairman, and I'm gonna have more money
oh
come in, right?
yeah, I'm just questioning whether Bengal is going to receive more money since it's such a lucrative situation for
Right.
me. So um,
I mean, I can
let's
tell you
just
what I would do, right? I would probably spend at least 5,
yeah.
right?
Military can go first. The military is not going to do anything,
Got it.
and then trade will. Um,
Right. So
yeah,
you're gonna
we're going to
trade in
trade
2
with 5.
spots, please, Lord. Okay, success. Okay, so that means now the order here doesn't matter. So these writers go here and here. You correctly.
So
It doesn't matter. It
11.
doesn't matter where. So the company gets 11. I'll do that. So the company goes to 28. You get 3 into your family for that, and I get
Yeah.
1 into my family. And that's the trade. And that concludes all the offices, right? So now we're going to go to the end of the round, which I would love to tell you it's easy. It's not. China doesn't happen. Bonuses happen. I have no ships. I have nothing else that generate bonuses. You all do. The Paxton family gets 3 money for the 3 fitted ships, and the
Nice.
Hastings family gets 1 money for a fitted ship, right? So you guys are all money bags.
I took it. Yep.
Um, and then we move on to revenue. Revenue is a cool phase, I think. So now you're going to get to understand how the company works, right? So we do expenses. Expenses are debts, armies, and ships, right? So we have 3 debts. We have 4 armies, right? The regiments count 2. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. The commanders do not count as armies. So that's 7, right? 3 plus 4 is 7. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's the company.
It's
Yes?
even on private ships, not just the company ship.
All ships. Even on extra ships. Doesn't matter. All ships.
Gotcha.
So, wait, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So the expenses
Yeah.
are 12. So that goes out of the company. So the company goes from 28 to 16. Now we check for expectations. The expectations are, now look at the company standing. The expectations are 10. So we meet expectations. All that means is that the company standing stays fixed. If we had less than expectations after expenses, the company would have gone down 1, but it didn't. We vastly exceeded expectations, which is fantastic, right? Now comes the part where I can actually increase the company standing. And to do that, and this is decided by the chairman, pay dividends. So this is a thing that the chairman exclusively decides. I do not have to consult with anyone on this. I can pay as many dividends as I want. And what that means is how many shares are there in the company right now? There are 6, right? So a dividend is £6. And we are at 16, right? So I'm for sure going to pay. So it says if I pay more than expectations in dividends. So the expectations right now are 10. So if I pay more in dividends, we would go up in company standing. So I'm going to pay two dividends, which means I'm going to pay 12, right? Which means I'm going to go down to 4. And that means that Hastings and Walsh both get £6.
Mind if I do?
As your shareholders.
Yeah, so I just paid that out. I just paid dividends to the families, but that also means that the company standing goes up. I'll be honest. I've played this game. I've played this game five times now, or 5-ish times. If you count the teaching sessions, probably more like 8. Never once have I seen the company standing go up on the first round. Never, ever. So, because usually one of these trades fails, right? So that's wild. So the company's doing great, and that's the revenue phase, right? So now the company's at 4, so we're going to have to generate more debt, which means we're going to get more shares in the company, and yada yada yada. So now comes the painful phase: events in India. So for that, I would like you to look at this. I'm going to enlarge the die because it's fun. Look at this gratuitously large purple die over here. I'll minimize it again. So what is this? This thing has sides, and I'm going to go through them. There's a 4, there's a 1 and 3 storms, there's a 2 and 1 storm in the east, a 3 and a storm in the south, and actually 2 sides with a 4, which is kind of a pain in the ass. Because the sides with the 4 are going to show us how many events happen in India, and we have this deck here to show us what those are. And this is the part, I'm going to shuffle these, where I'm going to tell you I am going to do this pretty fast, and I'll tell you what I'm doing, and I'm probably going to mess it up because it is truly an overhead. So someone else should roll this so that I don't feel like I'm the bad person if it ends on a 4. So one of you should grab this big die and just roll it.
Okay.
Hit R a lot. Highlight it and hit. What are you doing? Don't grab it. Don't grab it.
Okay, don't grab it.
Just
don't
highlight it and hit R a lot.
There we go.
Jesus
okay,
Christ.
a lot.
It landed on 4 twice. It landed on 4 twice. I think we don't get to do that anymore. I think it's a 4. I think it hit 4 twice. So we're gonna have 4 events, right? And I'm gonna actually.
Gosh.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. So I'm gonna take the top of this and flip it, and it is a leader event, and the leader event happens in Hyderabad, and so these are not all listed over here. Actually, they are all listed over here. Leader. If this region is sovereign, that's the word I was looking for earlier. It is. All regions are sovereign. We haven't. Well, actually, that's not true. These are not sovereign because they're part of an empire. And how can you see that? Actually, sorry. These here are the 2 that are not sovereign because this is the capital of the empire. And if you look, you can see that the largest flag is on the capital of the Delhi Tower. It's kind of hard to see, but if you rotate around, you'll see that the Punjab and the Maratha towers are small flags, even though the tower is taller in Maratha, and that the flag on the top of the Delhi Tower is the largest. That means it's the capital of this empire. But we're in Hyderabad, so it says strengthen if sovereign. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to increase the tower in Hyderabad to 2. And that's it, right? That's all that happened as the leader, right? Otherwise, resolve rebellion or attack on company, which is not happening, thank God. So that was a pretty benign one. And now the thing is, this does not incur a movement of the elephant. We haven't talked about the elephant yet. There's an elephant token here. Elephant means right now, if a crisis happens, then there will be a rebellion of Maratha against the capital of Delhi, because the elephant is on the border between Maratha and Delhi, pointing to Delhi. And I already apologize for the number of words I'm going to say in the next 5 minutes. It's going to be a lot of words. So that's the first event. So we got through one unscathed. Let's pull the next one. Wow, another leader in Madras, which is also sovereign. So we're just going to make that one taller. So these are just increasing in strength. That's all that happens here. Now I'm going to flip the next one. Now we have 2 more left. Shuffle. Top of stack. This is another typical, this is stuff happened and now we have to shuffle the deck again. Shuffle this card in with the deck, then shuffle the discards and place them on top. This is the weirdest event I've seen in a while. So I'm going to shuffle that back in and then take the discards, flip them, shuffle them, and put them back on top, which means we know exactly what one of the next events is going to be, right? Because that was the 3rd event. And now we get another leader in Bombay. So this will increase the strength of this
Oh,
tower.
so you do this. I see. It's
Yeah.
got that system where you.
Right.
It's cool.
That's it. That was the India phase. That is again the most benign first turn India phase I've ever seen. So it's just a thing that triggers. It's just all that happened. Well, all that happened is Madras got stronger, Hyderabad got stronger, and Bombay got stronger, which is just going to make it harder to do military actions there, which I'm actually in favor of. But, you all may not be, but we'll see. Now comes the Parliament meets phase. In the Parliament meets phase, I, as the Prime Minister, basically take the order, take the gavel. And what we do now is, the royal protection is already in place, is we have this deck up here. And this deck is laws. It's shuffled. And I will flip a few before this. So let's just simulate it first. I'll flip a few. Because what I'm trying to look for right now is a very specific... there, that's what I was looking for. So let's put that back on top, because this is a good example. So I flip one of these, and then I have to decide whether that's the law I want to put forth. And I can do that up to 3 times. Why would I not do that? Why would I stop now? Well, because let's say I'm like, you know what? I don't like this one. Let's try another one. And I flip it, and it's a dilemma. If it's a dilemma, I have to put it up for vote. And I cannot go back to the previous one. If it wasn't a dilemma, I could go back to the... Jesus Christ. I could go back to the previous one and decide, say I did 3 and none of them were dilemmas. I could be like, you know what? We're going to do with this. We're going to go with this one. This is all unilateral Prime Minister stuff, right? And I'm not going to explain what they are yet, because I'll explain what they are when we get to them. Now, I'm obviously trying to look for laws that I can pass. Because if I can't, I lose the Prime Minister position, and I don't get a law pass token. And a law pass token is great because it gets you a trophy. It's this token here, right? Which is just 1 extra power. There's also a trophy here. The trophies are for successful military deployments, of which we've had none yet. So let's do it. I'm going to be the Prime Minister. I'm going to be like, cool. I'm going to shuffle the deck, and let's pull a law. Envoy to China. Trade in China is worth 5 per opium icon. If the office has not been created, create the Superintendent of China office. It starts off very unfavorable with -3 votes on this track over here on the right. So I'm going to have a hard time getting that through. And what it does is it also forces me to look on the dial and move to the next anchor icon to the right or the left of the current position, which on the dial right now is on power. So I would either have to tax shipyards or give power to shipyards. So I don't like this one. So I'm not even going to ask you guys whether you like that, because you probably would like it if I don't tax. If I tax you, you're going to vote against it, right? Because I always have to decide on both of those things. I have to decide on the law and on what happens with the policy down here. So, and then I put that up for vote. I don't like it. I'm going to pull another one. It's a dilemma. This one immediately goes to the graveyard, and we have to vote on this one. Crap. Okay, old ideas made new. Immediately search the discard pile and select 1 law. You may select a dilemma. Note, cards drawn this turn are not yet in the discard pile. After resolving the vote, shuffle all discards drawn in this turn. If there are no cards in the discard, ignore this card, shuffle it back into the deck, and draw a new law. Okay, so then this is actually still out. This gets shuffled back in because there were no in the discard. And I pull a new one. And it is another dilemma. War against France. If passed, the Prime Minister selects 3 non-extra ships, and 3 officers return ships to shipyards or to the supply. Officers are returned to the supplies. If failed, roll the storm die and resolve a foreign invasion event in the home regions associated with any sea zone shown. Wow. So that's really bad. But we don't have a choice, right? So again, I don't really have a choice. Now I have to put this up for vote. It starts at +1. And I haven't decided yet on what I'm going to tax, right? So I have to go down here to the wheel, and I have to either tax shares or shipyards. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm obviously taxing shipyards, right? I can't tax shares. I have too many shares. So now this is going up for vote. So how does voting work? So starting with the prime minister, I have to cast my votes. I can cast votes either with these ballot boxes. So Steve has 3 of them. There's one on each of your shipyards. Brian has one of them. But I can also use money. Now, we're going to take turns doing this. It's going to start with me, then it's going to be Brian, and then Steve. After that, I'll look at the outcome of where this marker is, and if it's on a 0 or higher, I can say the vote passes. If it's lower, it fails. But I can call a second round of voting, in which case you cannot reuse the boxes you've already used. Like they're exhausted for that turn, the ballot boxes. But you can pump in more money. So what I'm going to do now, honestly, is I'm going to say, I don't like this, but for now, I'm going to see what you guys think. And I'm not going to put in any votes. I'm just going to pass it over to Brian to figure out what you want to do with this. Because if it fails, we're going to get a storm die and resolve an invasion in any sea zone, which, could be all 3, but that's only on one side of the die. Usually it's going to be something like 1 sea zone, or none if it rolls the 4. So there's a 1 in 3 chance that it will actually hit no sea zone. This would be the west. And then you have to resolve a foreign invasion, which we'll get to when that happens. The invasion would not be against the company because the company doesn't have anything yet, but they would invade these places, and if the invasion succeeds, it would close all orders in that region. Also, if it happens in Bengal, the writers would get killed in the process and go back to the supplies. But if it passes, then I have to actually undo ships and officers. But we can refit them. It's just going to cost money. This is going to suck either way, is what I'm trying to say.
And to refit the ship, who pays for that?
Who pays for what?
Is that for the manager of shipping?
The company has to pay for it. The chairman would have to equip the manager of shipping with money to be able to fit the ships.
Okay.
Right.
Got it. So it's going to be, so it's going to cost what, 9 to refit the ships.
Yes.
And I don't even know how we get new regiments.
Well, it does. I'm not going to. So I don't have to. I have to get the regiments out too. There's no way to get other regiments. I'm actually okay with getting rid of the regiments.
Devastating.
It's pretty bad one way or the other. That's why I have no opinion on it. I mean, I'd like it to pass because I'd like to stay prime minister. And I think the thing that happens when it passes is less bad than the thing that happens when it fails.
Sorry, I missed that. So if this fails, you're lose power.
If it fails, then whoever is the leader of the opposition, who is the person who put in the most votes against it. So I can't vote against it. As the prime minister, I'm not allowed to vote against it. You two can vote against it, and whoever has the majority in the votes against it becomes the leader of opposition. And then if it fails, that person's the new prime minister.
Or that just means you can't use your ballot boxes, but you can put money in to vote against it?
I can't put money. No. I can't even put money in it to vote against it. I can only vote in favor.
So we can definitely sink this then if we felt like it.
You can, but I can call a second round and I can put money in. But yes, you can.
We have 4.
Yeah, but I have 14 money, and you can figure out whether you want to go into a money war on this or whether you want to win on estates, right? I'm going to try to make this pass is all I'm saying. So if you both vote against it, I might actually pump some money into it so that you all have to pump some money into it. Maybe. I don't know.
We all have a lot of money.
What do you think, Steve? I'm actually kind of feeling like maybe you want this to fail. Like we each put one vote in to get it to -1, and Andy will probably cancel it, and then we can start over.
I guess to what end is the question. So how much do we want to drain Andy on this if we're going to push it to fail?
I mean, look, he just taxed all your ships, so maybe we don't want him as prime minister anymore. And I don't know. But
I didn't tax your stock, to be clear, right?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Oh, anyway, as
Yeah.
far as Steve's concerned, that was kind of
Yeah.
a kick. All right. And I guess there's a chance nothing happens even on the bottom outcome. So
There's a chance nothing happens on the bottom out. Well,
Yeah.
there's a 1 in 3 chance that nothing happens. The foreign invasion is basically it's like an internal invasion, but it's going to be with a random dice roll. And again, whatever area gets invaded, all open orders get closed in the area.
Right.
Yeah. Before
Just as a heads up, we have 15 minutes till the hard stop.
It's a soft hard. Well, it depends on whether it's a hard. I can probably go to 12:15.
Okay.
And also,
quick question, just so I understand.
This is gonna be this is gonna be the last big thing in the first round.
Right.
We
So
are
I
still gonna
understand
play
the-
the London season, but that one goes pretty easy. Go ahead.
So I understand the implications here. Are these writers going to stay in these trade spots?
No,
Like,
they're
are these
come,
exhausted,
no, no, they're
basically?
Gonna, no,
Okay,
they're going to
no.
come back in upkeep and refresh unless they get killed by the
Okay.
foreign invasion. In which case, they will go back to the supply. So there's another chance that we just lose our writers to the foreign invasion, right? Which
Well, it's a
is
chance
not
you
great.
take.
I'm just trying to point out what the benefits are of passing this law.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm kind of rooting against these people. It's just us humans, you know. So it's I gotta like step out of that in order to play the game properly. But
Right.
Yeah, properly.
Yeah.
You can role play this, right?
yeah, well, okay. I mean, all right. Well, if you just want to go along and get along, that's fine. But
Well, you
I
have
don't know,
you have a decision to make now. How many votes are you going to cast for or against it?
I'll cast a vote against it, and I'll see what Steve does.
Okay, so it goes to 0. So you have to exhaust this here. Let's just rotate it to the right before it shows exhausted. You are now the leader of the opposition, right? Because you are the one who's cast the most votes against it. Steve.
So, can you rescind the tax decision at this point, or did you have to say?
No,
what
I
you're
had to
taxing?
say what I'm taxing.
Okay.
You could have asked me to not do that and say if you don't do that, I'll vote for it.
Right.
But you had to do that before I called the vote. Now it's already now it already happened.
And if this fails, I mean, the tax decision still stands anyway. It's not.
No,
like we're
so
actually
here's what
voting on
happens
the
if it fails. If it fails, then whoever's the leader of opposition becomes the next prime minister, and then that person can move, or not can, has to move this here, one to the right or one to the left, and then that happens. Right?
Yeah.
So conceivably, could I do 2 ballot boxes in opposition to this?
You could.
And be set up to be the next prime minister.
Yes, you could. In fact, I think that's the smartest move.
I was gonna say I'm trying to see the downsides.
No, there's no downsides. It's the smartest move.
Let's get on Andy's bad side.
I mean, it's I don't, whatever. I think that if I were you, in fact, I would probably just cast 1 ballot box, because that's enough to tank it, right?
Oh, and keep you as prime minister then.
No. You will not keep me as prime minister. Then the two of you just have to decide who of you is going to be leader of the opposition. If you want to guarantee that you're leader of the opposition, you would cast 2 ballot boxes.
Okay.
And I wouldn't overthink this, honestly. There's too much chaos in this game for this level of thought, honestly. Trust me, guys. Trust me on this one. Just do it. Do 2 ballot boxes. You're good.
I'll just do the 2.
Okay,
Yeah.
so tap 2 of your ballot boxes. This goes to -2. And now I have to decide whether I'm going to pump money into this. And I think I'm not. I don't think I am. I don't think I care.
Okay.
I do not care. So you become the new prime minister. Leader of opposition goes away.
You said
Untap.
tap the 2 ballot
No.
boxes.
It doesn't matter anymore. You can keep them untapped. Because we're not voting on a second law. But you now have to decide whether you're going to give power to workshops, which means you would have to move workshops up and shares down, or whether you're going to tax luxury goods and windows, of which there are none yet. And given where you are in the game right now, I kind of feel like you want to depower stock.
Yeah.
So you'd probably move
because I'm not in that at all.
So you move power that little token over to there, and then these two tokens here shift positions, right?
That's cool.
And you're the new prime minister, and there was no law passed. This failed though, and now we have to do the if failed thing. So someone please roll the storm die, so it's not me.
All right. Well, I rolled it last time. Brian,
okay.
You want it?
Okay. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Was that bad?
That's really bad.
That was
so
now
we have a foreign invasion. Roll storm die and resolve an invasion in each region linked to a storm. For each roll a die to determine strength. If region is defeated, close all orders there and set strength to half of the strength of the die. So we have to do that for all regions. I'm going to do this part now because this is fun. So I'm going to roll it for Bombay. 4. So that is more than 2, right? So what that means is the new leader is 2. It's just a different, whatever. It's another sovereign state because it's 4 divided by 2 is 2. But this one goes, so this is dead. This goes back to the supply. And now all orders here are closed. Dude. No, this is terrible. This is absolutely terrible. Now we're going to do it for Madras. Roll. Oh
my god.
So strength. So that means strength 3. My green rider is dead. And that order gets closed. And now I'm going to do it for...
Turns are dropping like flies.
Remember a few minutes ago when we said this was the most successful opening turn we'd had?
So it's going to stay at strength 1. It beat it. Oh, wait. You know what? Yeah, it's because our military would normally come into play, but not because we don't own those areas, so it doesn't. So it stays at strength 1, but both the blue and the green rider are dead, and both of these orders are closed. We are ultra screwed, is what I'm going to tell you, right? Because of all that. So that's the foreign invasion. They invaded in all home regions. They still look the same, but everything got closed because they were all successful.
Right.
And now that ends Parliament meets. That was lovely. We go to upkeep and refresh. So in upkeep and refresh, normally you'd look, there's a couple of things you do. First, you take all these filled orders away. You move all the writers back. They all died. We have no surviving writers. That's absolutely lovely. And what else? Your workshops would refresh. All that stuff refreshes. I think that's it. For upkeep. You'd have to pay money here.
What determined the writers?
Sorry, you'd have to pay money here if you had anything, but you don't, right? There's upkeep for your estates, but what determined that the writers died? That everything got closed.
Yeah.
Whenever an order gets closed and there's a writer in it, the writer dies.
Sorry, I missed the consequences of the dice roll. So it was a 2. So it
was a 2 against a 1 strength Bengal. So that succeeded. That means that the invaders came in, started a new sovereign country of the strength of the die roll divided by 2, which is strength 1, and all orders got closed. So when an order
the strength just stayed the same.
It stayed the same because I rolled a 2. Yeah. If I'd rolled a 6, it would be strength 3 now. So whenever an order gets closed, if a writer is on it, it kills the writer. Right. So now we basically that cost. I mean, that's what I was afraid of would be the consequence of that law failing. So this is going to be very hard to recover from, is all I'm going to say. Anyway, that's it. That's the end of a round. And the one thing we're going to do before we sign off for today is the London season, because we haven't done a London season yet. So we go to turn 2 of 5 turns total possible, and we go to the London season. So the London season says attrition, retirement, and prestige cards. So what do we do here? You have offices. Take 1 die for each of the cards in front of you, right? And just put it in front of the cards. So for Brian, that would be 3. For me, it's 2. And for Steve, it's 2, right? Now, we can do this independently, but I would say... I mean, it's fine. We can do it independently. So just roll mark all your die and roll them. Okay. So let's go through from left to right. Yeah, you can roll. I'd roll it again. There we go. Okay, great. Okay, so let's see. First of all, the president of 1 and a 2 means nothing happens. So president of Bengal, all good. 3 and a 4 means exhausted. So
Oh my
what
God.
we have to do now is that the military affairs and the chairman, actually I'm sorry, the chairman, I'll explain that in a second. This is going to be great. So President of Bombay is safe. No one else is safe. So the president of Madras and the manager of shipping both retire. So you're going to take your president of Madras and your manager of shipping and both put them in the pensioners box.
But they didn't die.
They didn't die.
That's good.
So, okay, so then these go away. And now these cards will both go to the, I'll order those later, to the vacant offices box. The chairman, because the chairman's position is so stressful, starts with a +1 to the attrition roll. So this is a 5, which means that my chairman retired. So the chairman also goes to the pensioners box. Boop. And then over here we have the military affairs, who gets a exhaustion cube, which means on future retirement rolls that's a +1, so that's fine. And the director of trade retires. So you're going to take your director of trade and put it in the pensioners box. Okay. And now, so that was attrition. Now we go to retirement. So retirement, again, starting with the what is now known as the former chairman. So I'm going to take that token to myself right now, so we know I was the former chairman. And we already know who's going to be the next chairman because someone now has a majority votes. Starting with the former chairman, I get to retire. So these estates aren't unique, to be very clear, right? It's not like I take one and then you don't have it, right? So whoever spent the most money gets... Oh, sorry, that was me hitting the microphone. Whoever spends the most money gets first dibs on these prestige cards, and I'll explain those in a minute. So I have 14 money. So I could spend all 14 on this juicy estate here. And you know what? I think I'm gonna go down to 0. And I'm gonna get 8 victory points. I think I'm on the bottom here, so let's just put me to 8. And that ends my retirement. So now the next in turn order, again, is going to be Brian. And now you pick one of your pensioners to retire. Right? I don't think you pick... Or maybe, you know what? No, you pick all of them. You can retire both of them. So you could put, one on here. You can put them anywhere you want. Right? You also don't have to retire both of them, but the one you don't retire would go back to your supply. You have
16, so I could do a 2 and a 14, or 2 8s.
You could, 2 8s is like a little bit like... So if I ever get to a situation where I can't pay these £3 on upkeep, I have to get rid of this guy. Right? So
seems... Yeah. 14 plus 2 does seem strictly better than 2 8s. Or
I mean, you're paying more, and you have a little... You're hedging a little bit against like, if I can't pay 4, at least I'll still have one of them. Also, you only have... Well, you'd have 4 windows, right? If you put 2 here, you have 4 windows. If you put 1 here, you only have 3 windows.
Yeah.
I think that this one is... I think this one is better, is my gut feeling.
Yeah, I think I'm a little worried about my ability to get 3 money next turn, but...
Yeah, me too, but there's usually ways to get money. There's usually ways to get
I think I'm actually... What happens if I don't retire this? They just go away?
It just goes back to your supply.
I don't even get any... What's the point of putting them in 2 then? There's not even any
So
VP
that you've
for
spent more. So right now we've both spent 14. I'd have to actually look up what the tiebreaker is. I think the tiebreaker maybe former chairman. I'm not sure, or I'd have to look it up. That's one thing I'm not doing right now.
We're just going to go back to the
In fact, as
scrap pile.
This, I'm going to go John Company 2nd edition rules PDF. I'm just going to go look up the rules PDF so that I have it in front of me. Because I think the only place I'm going to find it is on BGG, and I think that's it. Oh no, I found it. Got it. Okay, so that, Steve, you get to retire. Steve?
Yep. Yep.
I was like,
Okay.
did we lose you?
No, no. I like it is too, so I was deferring on a stop. Let's see. So I'm kind of in the same monetary boat as everybody else too, right? Like it was 16, 14, 14.
So the first tiebreaker
I'm
is
actually
Windows. The second tiebreaker is Prime Minister. Starting with the Prime Minister. That's the
Oh.
tiebreaker here.
okay. Since I'm prime minister, it feels like maybe it's worth tying to get the most leverage out of that.
Sure. So pay 14.
So 14,
It's
and then
all of your money.
clear that out.
Okay. So we're all at, basically, I'm going to put you guys up here. We're all at 8 victory points.
Right.
And now you get first pick, and then my so now okay, you get to pick one of these, and I'll explain what these are. So spouses usually have an upside and a downside, and you can have multiples, right? Because it's your family. So this one is straight up 2 victory points, and it also gives you -1 on future retirements. That's what that -1 means. But you may no longer seek or own company shares, which you already don't have, but you also could not get them anymore.
Right.
This
Might not be such a bad thing.
Yeah, spouse over here on the right is 2 power. When taking prestige cards, you may take to the top of the deck as long as there at least 1 card in the display. Okay, so it gives you more options for the prestige cards. Foundry is a workshop, counts as a workshop icon, I should say, not a workshop. It says each time any players purchases a workshop or a regiment is added to an army, you take 1 pound from the bank. Including yourself, right? If you ever add a regiment, the only way to add a regiment is by a governorship, as far as I can tell, which we have none of yet, and it will be very hard to establish. But we probably won't. We'll probably have to, because otherwise we're never going to trade again. Is my guess. Because just doing opening and closed orders by means of envoy actions is very slow and very expensive. So those are your options. You get to pick first.
I'm feeling like Foundry might be the best long-term play since we're also short on cash, and also like understanding what you said about how we're gonna have to engage with regiments. We're gonna have to push military to be able to open up the trade routes anyway.
Right.
I don't know if I want to even though I haven't been as pro company as either of you, I don't know if I completely want to lock out my
another thing I'll
belief
tell
in
you
stock.
is, so I'm going to read this to you. Beginning with the player who spent the most total cash, each player who retired at least 1 pensioner this turn must take or discard 1 card from the London season display. Must take or discard, just so you know. So you don't have to take any of them. But yeah, you'd probably be, honestly, if I were you, I'd probably take Joseph Sedley, given that you already have no shares in the company, because 2 victory points is good, and discounts on future retirements is good. That's what I would, unless you are planning on having, because you cannot see what it says at the top. You cannot transfer this card. You cannot. Yeah. Those spouses count as humans. You cannot trade them. Right?
Got it.
Count as humans. I know that.
Count as humans.
Count as humans. They're humans.
I mean, I'm a spouse, so this is great news for me.
Yeah. Things. Yeah. It's looking up.
The computer scientist in me is just being hyper formal about this right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. There's nothing lost.
I mean, unless you want to start. Unless we were playing this purely cooperatively, which I feel like we're already not, because now so again, strategy tip. Steve, you know that the company is going to probably have to start going for a military strategy. Otherwise, we're never going to trade again, which is probably not a bad thing for you, where you're like, I don't know yet where the company is going. I'm not sure that I care, right? So I feel, even narratively, you're kind of going to marry into a screw the company person, I think. But it's up to you, right? But like, yeah. Here's the thing. Have either of you played Twilight Imperium at some point in your life?
No.
Have you, Brian? Have we lost Brian? Brian?
Hello?
Brian, are you still there?
So?
Okay. Oh, your audio is cutting out or something. Have you played? Didn't hear you. Have you played Twilight Imperium?
We can sort of hear you, but
We can sort of hear you, but you're like, I just heard like a grunt. Okay.
Okay. Well. So
Anyway,
let's assume
the reason I'm
for
asking
this
is because in
we're
Twilight
gonna-
Imperium you get like pretty heavily like railroaded into a specific type of role play, and here you can the role play is very, very malleable, right?
Yeah.
Is this any better?
This is better.
Yeah,
we
that's
can
better.
hear. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll ask you again. Have you played Twilight Imperium?
Only the roll and write.
Oh, that's a different game. That is a different game with the same name. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if you heard what I just said. Like the role play, I love the role. Like I am not a tabletop RPG person at all, but I love the role play in TI. But it's very like you're the universities, you're the scholar, right? It's very clear who you are from the get-go, and it does guide the game in interesting ways. Here, it has like procedural role play in a interesting way. Like it's like you can kind of determine who you want to be at any time, but you're definitely being like slightly moved.
Right.
But not
There's a gravitational
fully.
pull.
There's a gravitational pull, but you could go against it. You can be like, you know what? I'm a company guy. I'm gonna take Becky or something, right? Or I'm gonna discard the first card or something. That said, if I were you, I know what I would do.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is just a question of, like, yeah.
While Steve
victory
ponders,
Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to ask: is there any means of divestiture out of the court of directors if I think the company's going south?
You can only trade them, so you can't just give them up. So you can say, "Hey, Andy, do you want one of them? I'll trade it for you for something else." Like, do you want? You know, you could do that.
Gotcha.
But you can't just straight up burn them.
I'm assuming they just switch colors then with like the person that gets them.
Exactly. Like you'd take a blue one away and I'd add a green one.
Yeah.
So the stock. Go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I guess there's a lag or something. Sorry. When I'm talking, no one else is talking. I'm not interrupting from my perspective. If you're interested in getting into the share situation, Steve, like I'm willing to kind of hedge my bets in the company. So there's a way in. I'm very happy to make a trade or something here if you have some share FOMO. Right. Where you fully commit to the screw the company route.
Yeah, well, what I was going to ask on the court of directors is that each
share FOMO.
You go some share FOMO. You know, I feel left out. I want to participate. For the court of directors, do each of these? So each of those are worth 1 victory point. Is that what that is?
Or -1 if the company tanks.
Or -1 if the company tanks. Okay.
I mean,
how
the other thing is if you
deduce that share FOMO deal, Brian.
Well, I'm not really sure what's tradable right now, I guess.
Everything.
Well, that's right, but
money,
I mean, like, what does that mean? Shipyard? Steve doesn't have money.
Shipyards are tradable.
That kind of.
Here's the thing we didn't even talk. We didn't even. No, you can't trade offices. Okay. Here's the thing we didn't even talk about yet. Those are ignore the face down cards. Those are for the extended version. But you can look at your other deck that's face up down there. Those are promissory notes. We haven't even done hiring yet, so you don't know exactly what consent for nepotism is, but we'll get there. Right? You can trade in those. Those are tradable. Those also describe on the flip side what they do, right? So for example, for consent for nepotism, it says, play at any time an office is being hired, i.e. you may not use this electing the chairman, right? But when offices are hired, you can't hire your own people unless every other eligible person gives consent for nepotism. This would force them to give consent for nepotism. But there's also other stuff, like take my office holder's bonus, vote with my enterprises if you own them, take my card from the London season display, take £2 or less from me, right? Which you can do at any time. Right? Oh my God, it even says here on the take £2. Play at any time. For example, you may cash this in to prevent a player from paying for upkeep. Wow.
Real.
That is so mean to even print like a strategy tip on the card.
enterprises. These things are actually, are they called
No, no, no,
enterprises?
no.
Or is enterprise
Enterprises
something
are
different
your
than stock?
workshop.
Oh,
These are
oh, they have
enterprises.
votes.
Yeah.
Oh, they have votes. Right,
Yeah.
right.
So
Okay.
only
I see.
enterprises. Shipyards are not enterprises. Enterprises
Yeah.
are only workshops.
Oh,
The gear icon. Um, so no one has enterprises right now, but I would have enterprises if I was Steve. Just saying. But also, Steve,
sorry, I missed that. The
Steve, sorry, what?
enterprise is not the
No.
ballot box icon.
No, ballot box icon is a ballot box icon. Enterprises are the ones that have the gear icon on them.
Oh, okay,
There's
okay, okay.
luxuries, shipyards, and, well, workshops / enterprises.
I'm thinking I'm gonna go.
So I actually have to leave in 5 minutes. So sorry.
I'm gonna go with Joseph.
I think that's a good call. I think that's a good call. So you go to 10 victory points, and nothing else changes for you because, well, you already don't have.
I'm already out.
Yeah, I don't care about this right
You
now.
can't be the chairman either. Interesting.
Right. Okay, so that moves it to me. Anytime plays a workshop regiment has added to an army. I think I like the foundry. Actually, you know what? No. I'm going to take her. She's 2 power for the end of the game. That's fine.
There.
You take that. Okay, so now we refresh the London season display, so blackmail cards stay face down, and you may not peek at them unless it's your turn to pick a card from the display. So please do not peek at that card.
This is a really similar mechanism to Infamous Traffic. There's these gifts, and some of them are bad.
Interesting. I've never played that game. I'm looking forward to the second edition, and whenever that comes. So yeah, we can look at these. We're not gonna get these are for next round. They're just already out. So now we move to family and hiring. But I think now we've gone through and we haven't done hiring yet, and hiring is going to be interesting, especially since there are 4 positions to hire. That means that the writers are going to get extra writers, which is great for me because I enlisted writers last turn. But I think that's where we pause, right? At this point, I'm going to hit games up here, hit save and load, save game, call it John Company 2nd edition, Eggplant. Eggplant part 1, and save. You both can feel free to save it as well on your end, just in case, right? You can do that when you go to games, save and load, hit save game, and then just give it a name, because that way you'd have the saved state as well. This goes to my Dropbox, so probably we're fine. But
I actually can't save it. That doesn't work for me.
Oh, really? Well, maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe because if you don't have the mod installed, it might not work.
Right.
It might not work.
Right. Yeah. Since you're hosting and we're
Yeah. If you have the mod installed, you for sure should be able to save on your end. Is my guess.
Okay.
I think it's just because you don't have the mod. Okay. Well, I saved it. I'll make sure that hopefully that save just survives till tomorrow, and that's 1 full round. So we played 1 full round of 5, and to summarize. It's not looking great. I mean, the first round was amazing, right? We may have banked enough goodwill by moving the company up 1 in standing. It's not like we have a ton of debt. This debt will also potentially go away as people buy into shares, but now we know that that's never happening for Steve, right? You're not ever going to buy shares. We also already see that it's in my interest. Even though I said that the writers are good for me, it's maybe in my interest to buy shares, because I'm also no longer the chairman. No one's the you know what? I still am the former chairman, so I will still go first. But I also have $0, right? So, anyway, without talking too much about what's going to happen, we are now on the family phase. That's where we will pick up tomorrow. Which, of course, if you're watching this on the YouTube video, means nothing to you. But there will be a second part to this. That we will put up very shortly, and for the most people that means both parts will already be up. But I think you guys can just stay on, because I think what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to sign off with you on the call, and then we can end the call afterward, because I don't have to do the whole sign off thing, because this is, I mean, let's be honest, how many people are still watching right now? Okay, it's like 3 or 4. but we'll see.
Thanks for the teach, Andy. It was great.
Yeah, no, you're welcome.
There's some really interesting differences from Joko 1, especially the voting and stuff like that.
There's a lot of stuff that we haven't even touched on yet. Like we haven't hired yet. We haven't. But for the most part, you got the gist, I think. Steve, do you feel like you are smarter than you were 2 hours ago?
I feel like I'm smarter with John Company. I don't know about the rest, but I feel like I've got a better grasp.
I don't know. I always feel like I level up a little bit in life when I learn a game this complicated. But also I do it for a living, so I guess there's a built-in reward function for me, right? I also get to play these games, right? And so that already like is the icing on the cake for me. So much icing on that cake, so unhealthy. It's just sugar. It's all
this
sugar.
Is just finger in the jar. There's not even a cake.
It's like my son just grabbing into the dough, right into the raw dough mix.
Nothing but joy.
Like it's delayed punishment for the tummy ache that I'm going to stop stretching this metaphor to death, and just say we're going to continue this tomorrow. If anyone is listening to this or watching this, it's going to be live on stream starting at around 10:30 a.m. Pacific. My guess is even with the current state of India that we probably will get through at least another round or two. So I think, and the next rounds are going to go a lot faster, right? This one was a little bit slower because of the first one, but now it's going to accelerate, and I think it's going to get a lot faster. And we have, because we're only 3 people, there's a lot less negotiation. There will be negotiation, but it's less than with 6, obviously, right? So you can already imagine what this is like when you have like 6 different colors spread out over all of this stuff, right? It gets really chaotic, and usually people at that point will be like, well, at that point you have to play with private firms and deregulation, because that's when it gets really interesting. Now, then everyone's playing their own mini game with their shares in their company that other people can buy shares in, and then do hostile takeovers. And I haven't played that part
that's
ever,
crazy.
right? But it gets like it turns into a whole other mini game. But I mean, I'll be honest, right? That's where I'm building up to with teaching. Like I've only ever played the 1710 scenario. This is again the 1710 scenario. There are 2 other not full scenarios that are, I think, 1756 and 1810, and then there's the 1710 all the way to the end, like the 8-turn scenario.
This is like when we did Nevsky for like just for like the one season, and then the full 16-turn, like just in terms of how much it jumps in magnitude of complexity for
right
and depth.
Yeah, it definitely gets a lot more intense. But now you're gonna see the problem with me is like my brain can't compartmentalize, so now I want to start talking about Nevsky.
Okay, sorry.
And the fact that I think I won our horseless carriage game, I think, unless I did the math wrong, which I cannot believe is happening. Unless I did the math wrong. But I think and anyway, this is not part of this YouTube video. I have to stop now. I have to shut up. And we'll be back tomorrow. So this is the point where I'm going to say thanks everyone for watching. Tune in for part 2, where you will see the stunning conclusion of this 3-player game of the amazing John Company 2nd Edition. One of the best games I have played in a very long time. I am absolutely in love with this game. I think it's fantastic. It's unlike anything I've ever played before. And it works with 3, 4, 5. I've played it with all player counts. Feels different. Still an amazing game. Okay. See everyone next time. Cheers.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Andy. Safe travels, everybody.